everybody. It's Mrs. Kowalski here. And I'm here to read Miss Smith and the Haunted Library. And it is written by Michael Garland. It is a story about a young boy named Zack and how his favorite teacher takes him to the library, but she also reads from a book called The Incredible Storybook. So let's see what kind of adventures these guys get up to. But before I start, there's some really cool words in this story, some interesting words, some words that you might not have heard before, or maybe you heard before, but you're really not sure what it means. So, as I'm reading, maybe you take out a little Post-it, and as I'm reading, you think about some cool words or some words you want to maybe clarify or understand what the word means more, right? So maybe you think you know it, or you think you might have an understanding, but you kind of want some confirmation. So why don't you take out a little Post-it or a piece of paper, and as I read, see if there's any words that you would like a little more info on. All right, so here we go. Miss Smith and the Haunted Library. Check out the back cover. So cool. A little bit scary, a little bit cool. Look at all those crazy characters in the front. That's that Incredible Storybook. There's another couple of pictures. Check out that hand coming out of that storybook. And there's Zack, kind of staring out the window, looking at the fall leaves coming down. Staring out that window. Zack stared out of the classroom window at the dreary fall morning as he waited for his favorite teacher to arrive. Suddenly, Miss Smith burst through the door. "Good morning, class. We're going to visit the library today. There is someone special who I would like you to meet." Zack smiled when Miss Smith picked up the Incredible Storybook before heading out the door. Looks like everybody's excited, not just Zack. Seems like maybe Miss Smith has taken them on some adventures before. The library was right down the block from school. Zack warily, that's one of the words that I was talking about, warily. When somebody's warily doing something, they're not really walking with a lot of excitement, right? So the library was right down the block from school. Zack warily eyed the dark stone building as they walked single file up the sidewalk. The creaky door swung open, and they all tiptoed inside. That's like a scary-looking library. It's not like the Linden Library, right? "Class," Miss Smith said, "this is our librarian, Virginia Creeper." Zack stared in shock. Now I want you to get a picture of this lady in your head before I show you her picture. She has blue hair, pale skin, deep dark eyes. He hadn't been expecting this. "Hello, Miss Creeper," he said in a high-pitched, squeaky voice. "How can I help you today? This is the season for spooky stories. Do you have any suggestions?" Miss Smith asked. "Oh, yes," the librarian replied, "quite a few. I might find some of them in your Incredible Storybook." Now, remember, get a picture in your head. She had blue hair, pale skin, dark eyes. Got that picture? Dun, 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 dun. There she is. Look at all the children's faces. They're like, who is this lady? Miss Smith handed the book to Virginia Creeper. The librarian opened it and said, "I'll just read a little from my favorite scary stories." Miss Creeper began to read about a dark, haunted wood, and Zack shivered. Then, with a thunder of hooves, the headless horseman leaped out of the book. There he is. Headless horseman is just what you're thinking. The horseman has no head. Look at all the children's face. Look at like the magic coming out of the book. The children's mouths hung open in disbelief. Disbelief, right? Maybe that's one of those words. Virginia Creeper started reading again. And the hound is a fancy word for dog, the hound of the Baskervilles pounced from the book. More reading added the clinking and rattling of change as Marley's ghost appeared. New stories brought out the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Frankenstein, and Count Dracula. Look at all those scary characters. The Hound of the Baskervilles, the Hunchback, the Ghost of Marley, Dracula, and Frankenstein. All those scary characters with all the children. I wonder what's going to happen. The class started to cling to Mrs. Smith, or to Miss Smith. The great black horse snorted and stomped his hooves. Frankenstein groaned, but Virginia Creeper just kept on reading as a flock of ghosts just flew out of the book. When Captain Hook and the Wicked Witch of the West entered the room, Zack wondered if he should run for the door. And all those extra characters coming. Wicked Witch, Captain Hook, the ghost, there's that headless horseman. Again, I'm going to point you to look at the children's faces. It said they were clinging to Miss Smith. The scary creatures were crowding the room, but that didn't stop Virginia Creeper from reading. Rumpelstiltskin, the Queen of Hearts, the big bad wolf, squeezed in among the others. Zack looked up and saw the giant from Jack and the Beanstalk bump his head on the ceiling. Because he was so giant. And there you have the Queen of Hearts, right? Let's see. The giant. The giant. And Rumpelstiltskin. Here he is, Rumpelstiltskin. Let's see where we go here. Next, the room was filled with eerie sounds of whiffling and burbling. Those could be cool words. Virginia Creeper, read on the flaming-eyed Jabberwocky, arrived in a puff of smoke. Then the strangest thing happened. Virginia Creeper stopped reading. She started to pass out cookies and apple cider to the children and the characters. The mood changed. To Zack's amazement, a party started. We started having a grand old time. I don't know about you, but some cookies and juice might do that for me too. Looks like some of the children's faces were changing. All the creatures seemed happy to be at the library. The Headless Horseman gave a horsey rides and the kids lined up. Someone brought out a ball and played fetch with the Hound of Baskervilles. Remember hound? Hound is a fancy word for dog. And Dracula told jokes. The giant gently picked up some kids and lifted them very high in the air. Everyone was enjoying the fun. The characters didn't seem so scary now. Yeah, everybody looks like they're having a good old time. Look, somebody's even feeding the doggy cookies. Everybody looks like they're having a blast. Virginia Creeper's happy smile suddenly changed to worried. Then she had a frown when she looked out the window and saw some of the senior citizens' book club coming up the walk. Oh my, said Mrs. Creeper. I almost forgot. It's time for the book club. They can't see this. This will give them such a fright. Go tidy up while I stall them at the door, the librarian told them. So here are the senior citizens coming. See, they all have their books in their hand, right? She doesn't want to give them a terrible fright. So she asked Miss Smith for help. Look at Dracula giving somebody a piggyback. Right? Look at that. That is so funny. So here they are at the door. ready to come in. Look at Mrs. Creeper. She's like, not yet. Not yet. Miss Creeper blocked the impatient readers from entering while Miss Smith ran around in a tizzy. Another cool word. She picked up overturned chairs and straightened up bookshelves. Here's Miss Smith going to town, trying to fix everything. Look at Frankenstein playing peekaboo. That's funny. Outside, the seniors were getting grouchy, but inside, the children and the characters had become too silly to notice. Can I help, Zack asked Miss Smith. She handed the Incredible Storybook to Zack. Remember, Miss Smith said, we have to finish each story so the characters will go back in the book. Kind of like maybe a little bit of a book time machine. Read the last page of each tale while I deal with this mess. So there's all those readers, right? Impatient readers. And here's Miss Smith trusting Zack, saying, please, please, read that last page. Let's see. Zack opened the book and quickly finished all the stories one by one. The characters went back into the Incredible Storybook. The puzzled book club burst into the room just as Zack finished the last page. Okay, class, it's time to check out your books, Miss Smith said, and she guided the class toward the big front desk. So here's first Zack reading, and as he's reading, all of the different characters are like going right back into that book. And then here is all of the children checking out the books. They're not warily checking out their books like they were warily walking into the library. Everyone thanked Virginia Creeper before marching down the library steps and heading back to school. With borrowed books under their arms, the children were looking forward to reading more about all of the characters that they had just met. Zack smiled and wondered what they would read tomorrow. So see all of these books that they have, right? All the children had different books, and they're hoping, I wonder if they're hoping that those books would be like the Incredible Storybook, where the characters would come to life. One says Spooky Stories. One says Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. One says The Boy King Arthur. Another says The World of Pooh. One says Otto and the Silver. I can't read the last word because it's on under the boy's hand. But see, they all have different stories. And like I said, I wonder if they're thinking that their characters will come to life. Check out what happened to Zack. He has the Spooky Storybook, and look who's outside the window. Now, this page is a page in this book that talks about where to find scary creatures. And this is a guide by Virginia Creeper, the librarian. And she lists one of the characters in the story, the Headless Horseman, is found in The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. And The Hound of the Baskervilles. I'll be honest with you, though, boys and girls. These stories are probably for when you get older. Not all of them, but some of them. The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The other is Marley's Ghost. And Marley's Ghost is in the story Christmas Carol. Frankenstein's Monster was from Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Captain Hook was from Peter Pan. Count Dracula was by the novel Dracula by Bram Stoker. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, also from The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. Rumpelstiltskin was from Grimm's Fairy Tales. You might have heard of one of those. The Queen of Hearts was from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. The Big Bad Wolf was from Grimm's Fairy Tales by the Brothers Grimm. The Giant from the Jack and Beanstalk was from the English Fairy Tales by Joseph Jacobs. And the Jabberwocky was Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There by Lewis Carroll. So in the back of the book, they have just a little note of all of the scary characters that were in this story. and where they came from. So that was a cute little amusing story about an adventure from Miss Smith's class and how they went to the library and all these crazy characters came to light. But I'm curious to know, what interesting or cool word did you take away from the story? Maybe one, maybe two. Maybe you can share that with your class or your teacher, or if you see me in the hallway, share with me. All right, have a good one. Thanks for listening.